Oh, well, uh, mm, uh.
You know what I kept thinking of? I kept thinking of that, in The Simpsons when they're I think it's when Itchy and Scratchy are trying to like kill each other, and it goes with boop, and it says technical difficulties, and there's the picture of the dog that's pulled the cord out of the thing. You need a picture of the dog that's pulled the cord out of the wall.
Can I share with you what it is that I get wrong consistently?
That was so
Right,
funny.
it's this mouse, right? So
Yeah.
if I use any more than one finger, right, the screen just does something, and I don't know how to get it back. So I'm going to leave the mouse alone.
Just don't touch.
Oh.
I was like, I don't know what's happening. That's all right. It's okay because we're flexible and we're adaptable. And you can have a laugh at yourself, and that's the important thing.
Well, isn't it funny that we're here to talk about parenting tonight, and yet that's actually what a lot of parenting is about. Like, there's things that are going to go wrong, things are going to go sideways, and you can either get frustrated about it, or you can just go, what's the bigger picture here? What do I really want? At the end of the day, we are going to turn up. We are going to talk about it. If things go a little bit sideways, what's the big deal?
Doesn't matter. I used to ask my my older kids would bicker about. They're very close together, about 16 months apart, and they used to bicker about just the littlest things, and it'd do my head in. They're arguing about where the towel is and whatever, and I used to say to them, "Oh my God, is this going to matter in 20 years? The conversation you're having right now, one day your father and I will be gone, right? Or we'll go old grey and then we won't be here. Is it going to matter? Whatever this argument that seems really important right now, is it going to matter in 10 years' time? Is it going to matter in 10 minutes' time? Just leave it." And, and they would inevitably go, "Yes, I'm going to remember this in 20 years that he left his wet towel on the, like, okay, yeah, sure you will. But I think it's a good check-in strategy, 10 years, 10 hours, 10 minutes. Like, how important is this drama? Because when you're in the middle of it, right, it's catastrophe.
And it is, right? And it's all the emotions are heightened, and because you're looking at the problem, right? And instead of looking at what's outside of the problem, what's beyond what's in front of you, and that for me is so I'm sorry, I've got to grab this. I always love a good giggle when we're talking. Mate, wandering around like a lost wombat in the Frankston dark looking for where you are, except you're doing a live feed. Anyone want to parent a wombat? It's quite funny. Thanks, Wombat. Good to see you. We'll be out there next Thursday. Dinner's next week. So, and that's brilliant, right? So, let's jump on the parenting side of things. Let's jump straight into it. I think parenting is the most rewarding, educational, painful, loving, extraordinary experience that I've had the opportunity to embrace, and it's something that like, is there a right way to parent? Yeah.
Well, it's a really interesting question. I am a follower of Dr. Justin Coulson. So I don't know if anybody caught, there was a reality TV show last year and this year. They're definitely doing a season 2. Someone will tell me the name of it, but it was about different parenting styles. and they had different examples of different parenting styles in it, and it was fascinating. And he was one of the people, facilitating the show, and they, showed what people are like in their own homes, which is just fascinating, because we often don't get to truly witness how other people parent other than our parents or whoever raised us. And maybe close, a sibling or something. Like you'll see your nieces or nephews getting parented quite, directly and wholly, like completely. Otherwise, you're kind of getting the sanitized version. Whenever you go to someone else's house, everyone's on their best behavior, right? So you're not getting that true, like, oh, how often do they, lose it at their kids or whatever. So it was a really interesting glimpse into how other cultures, other people that have had different influences, parent. And it was great sitting there watching it with my husband because when we came together, he already had 2 kids that were 7 and 8 at the time. And we then went on to have one together. And so he, and very, not unique to us, we had both been parented very differently from each other, and then were creating a family and having to parent the same kids, and coming into those roles with hugely different backgrounds and influences and philosophies and focus and all that sort of stuff. So coming back to the question, is there a right way to parent? I think if you paint in broad strokes enough, yes, there is my opinion on that. And Justin Coulson, actually, he runs a Facebook page or group called Happy Families. He's written a couple of books. He's got a new book out. He's not sponsoring me or anything. I'm just a fan of the way that he communicates about parenting, because it's not, no one's bad, no one's bad. No one's doing it wrong. Everyone's doing their best, right? But, and also, a lot of us could be doing better, right? We could do better if we knew different things, or if we knew better. So he recently posted, controversially, that there is a right way to parent. And I think if you stay very broad strokes, very high chunk about the general philosophies of right parenting, then it's a safer place to play, rather than getting specifics and dictatorial about how to parent. If there's broad concepts like, supporting the agency of your child, it's important for your child to have agency unto themselves. There'd be a lot of people that would subscribe to a variety of like parenting schools of thought that would all kind of agree on that part, at least. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, it's a really interesting question though, isn't it? Is there a right way to parent? And having 3 children, having had to parent 3 kids, they're all different. I couldn't parent any of them identically to each other.
Yeah.
In the specifics. Broadly, yes. But, independently, you've got to adapt, right? Like we had to at the beginning of this, we had to adapt and flex. And well, the way that we would deal with that with one of our kids is not going to work with the other. They will respond differently, or you're not going to get the outcome you want. Or, and I think it's that flexibility, what we call in NLP, the framework of NLP, we refer to behavioral flexibility. And behavioral flexibility is that bend and flex and the ability to adapt to situations. I think that is one of the biggest benefits I gained in my personal development journey in terms of practical applications. Like it had such an influence on the way I parented, and such an influence on the way then my husband parented, because I was modeling different behaviors. And he was like, oh, I really like the way that you dealt with that? Like, what was going on in your head when you were holding space for that conversation, or, you know? And so it really did shift. You know, my older kids now, the ones that were 7 and 8, they're 21 and they're 23, and they're probably old enough to tell you how we parented before mum did all her personal development growth, and then after, right? Because it really did drastically change the way that we were communicating as a family.
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
I love that, because Oscar and Marcella actually watched that show. I caught the very back end of it, or just me being me. I don't watch a lot of TV because I'm so busy doing other things, right? And it was really interesting to hear Oscar's perspective on that and let him see what parenting styles we had.
Yeah.
You know? and
what he could be dealing with.
Yeah, like, and that's like, it was actually quite fascinating to see that.
Yeah.
Like, and then he chose to choose me as something different. He goes, "You're what I would call an extensive parent." A what? I said, "Extensive parent." I go, "How does that work?" He goes, "Well, the way I see the you parent is that if basically, you know, we work together and we do as many things together as possible, and I don't push the boundaries too hard. Like I know I'm allowed to push them and find out where we're at, and I generally do the right thing. Then I get to do more because you trust me more, and I get the opportunity to do more things. Whereas if I push it too hard and I don't do the right thing and I don't help out, then you give me less responsibility and I don't get to do some of the things I want to do." So he goes, "You're extensive."
Very insightful.
You know? Tell me about it, right? And it's fantastic, because I've taken that away and gone, I'm actually going to embrace that. I'm actually going to embrace that and reward that. You know, like he does things that I can do with him because of the trust we have with one another. And so for me, is there a right way of parenting? I'd rather not look at right or wrong, and rather find ways to improve. I'd rather find ways to make progress as a parent. You know,
Yeah.
For me, what is a successful parent? If you're an improved parent from what your parents are, as in that you embrace your kids in a different way and they seem to have more opportunities because of what you've implemented in your life, congratulations, you're a success, right?
Yeah. Sometimes it feels like such a long game, right? Because you don't get feedback until they adult, right? And that's the feedback. I mean, you get feedback along the way, but you kind of don't know really how you're playing the game until they leave the home, they go out into the world, and you see them relate to the world, and you see them relate to, and what friends do they choose, and what circles do they move in, and what do they choose to do with their education or their careers. And I think that's really where you get to see, how, because, we can't control any other person, but we have influence, right? And our greatest influence is on our kids to a point, and then we have no influence with our kids. So I think it's such a beautiful gift to be able to watch your kids grow up. And if anyone's got, they've transitioned through and they've had teenage kids and they've got adult kids, let me know in the comments, like, how has that been for you to really, it's like the test, right? It's to see if the baby bird's going to fly when it leaves the nest, right? Like, are the wings good? Look, real life parenting. So
on life.
Sorry. That's sort of the proof in the pudding, right? Is when they adult and you're like, oh, all right, well, that seems to be going well. I've done a good job. Like there's milestones and checkpoints, like the end of primary and beginning of high school, and, first relationship and first heartbreak, and and there's these sort of checkpoints as you go. There's such a gift in watching your kids become adults and adult in life and get that. And that at that point, that's that level of feedback of like, hey, we didn't do such a bad job. Like, they're good humans, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's all you can really ask for, right? If they're good humans and they, like, I'll share a scenario in a minute, but if they're good humans and they're willing to step up to challenges and know that they've got a support network around them, I think that is the ultimate success for me. You know, like I see my role as a parent, I see it as not the person to be his everything, but rather be the person to provide him with the opportunities to grow as much as possible, but have other people teach him, because I'm not an expert in lots of things. Lots of things. But I think that's the key. You know, like I love putting Oscar in front of different coaches to grow, you know, like, and I think I'm very lucky in the aspect. Like, I'd love to have had more kids. I'd love to have had the opportunity to love again and to love more with it, you know. But I'm really grateful for I got the opportunity to navigate a life with a little dude that, to me, you know, is a pretty special little dude, you know. But it's come with me becoming the best version of me, and I truly believe in order with our kids, it's less about what we say, is more of what we do. The better we role model, the better we become, the better we've got the opportunity to. I'm going to grab that in a second. Sorry. Yeah, so the better that we've got the opportunity to actually have an impact, you know. So a comment's just come through, Lisa, and I really want to grab this. Okay, is that all right? Because
yeah, there's one I want to quickly answer, but you grab one.
This one here. So I really appreciate you sharing this, because it's something that we've had. I've had challenges with. I've had challenges with that with Oscar, and Oscar's he's a pretty strong kid. He's a different kid. He's, you know, like he's a great kid, and he has been a square peg in a round hole a lot. So helping him work through that has been a journey for us, you know, and part of that has been exposing him to people with better skill sets, right? So that he can gain strength in himself. Okay, so I'm gonna take off all my labeling right now, and I'm gonna be a parent. Okay,
a good place to answer from.
Right. It killed me what happened to Oscar. It killed me that when he went to go on camp and he walked up to the other boys to be a part of the photo for the boys, they told him to go away because he's not part of it. And then to see him leave on a bus in tears, every part of me wanted to take him home. Right? Every part of me wanted to rip him off that bus and just hold him. But the reason why he was able to stand and go through that and be there, because we've built confidence in him being him. We've made him proud to be him. We've helped him go through those hard times and given him strength. And I've always asked for permission. Please let me know when you need me to step in with you. Please let me know when I can step in. I am right here. But I gave him the power to do that. I don't know your exact circumstances. And if you like, I can even bring Oscar in to share his stories and share how he would work through it, if you think that would be helpful. Because bullying is such a tough thing. right? And one thing I know through all of my experiences with all the work that I've done, the reason why kids bully is because they either need attention, they don't know how to deal with what's going on in their life, and they don't have a safe place to do that. So they pull people down to justify how they're feeling. Yeah. They're a product of their environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've seen so often that we need to be really wary of what we say about other families. Like if you go to school, right, and if you say something bad about another family in front of your kids are protective of what you say, and they carry that to school. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can only share my experiences that really hurt, and I'm going to say that the only thing that I could do was to support my son to understand how he was not at fault, to give him the power of trying to understand the other kid's perspective, what's going on for that kid, as much as they don't want to hear that. Because when you understand, there's it's not okay, but I can sort of see why.
Mm.
And that's a really tough one, because all you want to do is empathize and sympathize with your child and stay with them. And yeah, that's crap.
Mm.
But we've got to go to the bigger picture. We've got to go to see what's going on in the environment behind it and come into it with compassion. You know, and as someone who had to sit back and go through that hurt.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think you've raised a really great, I think it's a wonderful answer to that question. And thank you to the person that asked the question. I think what I've heard is that there is this balance between validating the feelings of your child that's being bullied, right? And we have to validate that. It does hurt, and it does, feel like shit, and it is hard to deal with, and it does hurt your feelings, and all of that is absolutely valid. And at the same time, expressing curiosity and compassion, which we've talked about before, for the bully, and staying out of assumption and judgment, because the underlying core self-beliefs oftentimes, and not talking about Oscar specifically, oftentimes the core belief systems of the bully and the bullied overlap a lot. One is expressing it in one direction, and one ends up being the recipient. I had one of my kids was bullied pretty consistently and severely for years and years and years at school, to the point of an attempt at his own life in primary school, as a result of that bullying. And one bullying incident involved police. Like it was pretty serious. And we had a conversation about emotional resonance, right? So there's this, if you went into a music store and there's a guitar on the wall and a piano in the room, if you play a particular note on the piano that the guitar is tuned to, you hit the note on the piano and the string on the guitar at the same frequency will vibrate on the wall, right? It's a resonance vibration thing, right? Science, look it up, people. The same thing happens between human beings, There is an emotional resonance, right? The way that bullying has power, and this is entirely my own opinion, right? Just my opinion. The way that bullying has power is if what they say resonates within the bullied at some level, right? There must be a kernel of truth or a level of belief in what's being said. I'll give you an example. My youngest son has been taught that he's amazing just as he is, and clever and handsome and all that stuff we say to our kids, right? And he had an incident. I think he was in about grade 3 pre-COVID, and he came home and he said, "Mum, the weirdest thing happened at school today. Someone said to me, they said, yeah, well, you're really dumb." And he goes, "Why would they say that to me?" Like, he was not bullied. It didn't resonate with him, right? Because he didn't have any self-belief that he was not smart or that he wasn't very good at school, or he wasn't holding any of that within himself. And so their accusation that he was not very smart or dumb or whatever they said, he was just confused. Like, why would anyone say that to me? Because there was nothing to resonate, right? So it's as if somebody's ringing a bell on the outside. You have to have that matching bell inside for it to cut through, right? So I think after the fact, once there's been a bullying situation, that's you address that beautifully. I think the real key, aside from the multi-level intergenerational healings that need to take place to alleviate this from our community in general, the key is to sort of bully-proof your kids, to have such a level of self-belief, such a level of, and it's not ego, it's just a deep knowing that they are just who they are, and who they are is all good, and they're all good with themselves, because it doesn't allow for it mitigates the risk of having something within themselves that then a bully can hit that frequency of, you know what I mean? And ultimately, in everything that we're going to talk about tonight, we do our best, right? You do your best, and nobody's perfect. I'm not a perfect parent. I've spoken about the 80-20 rule before, right? I apply it to everything, including my parenting. So I'm not saying, I got all the answers and this is perfect. Absolutely not. But that's the difference in the school experiences that my 2 boys have had. One had a lot of stuff internally about not being smart enough, not being good looking enough, not being this enough, not being that enough. And he was really badly bullied through school. And my little dude is like, I'm a weirdo and it's who I am. And, like Scott knows me really well. And he's kind of unbelievable because he just doesn't care. Like, so far, fingers crossed. And we may have incidents, as he gets older, where it is an issue for us, and I will practice my behavioral flexibility at 80%, and we'll figure it out as we go. But yeah, it's such a really important conversation.
And I love that, right? Because it's that inner strength. And even the photo for tonight, right? It was just,
I love that.
Right? It was both of our boys working together in front of 50 adults, running an auction and being a part of the community that we're involved with, right? So as a whole, like you and I don't shy our kids away from anything, right? We step into every opportunity. And one of the things that I think was poignant. Like, and we've still got, but don't get us wrong, we're still going to have a lot of challenges going forward. We're still going to have a lot of things come up for us, right? But we embrace the challenge. We embrace the opportunity to grow. Okay, so what do we need to learn here? How are we going to grow? Because it's not our responsibility for other people. It's a responsibility for ourselves. How do we take responsibility for this situation?
Wait. Say that again slower. Don't skate through that bit, right? So you have taught Oscar that it's not our responsibility how other people behave.
No.
Who are we responsible for?
We're responsible for how we present ourselves and what we project.
That's like, I didn't want you to race through that, right? Because it's really key. It's really key. And when you remove that responsibility off our kids to be emotionally responsible for everybody else, that is a big deal.
And I think that's the essence of the parenting style that I have, my extensive parenting style. It comes down to the context, right? And I was having a conversation today about this. What's the context? Like, if you're focused on the now and the problem, then that's where your focus and energy goes, and that's where it stays. If you go, okay, so that's a problem. What happened before it? What was the consequence, positive or negative? Okay, so how could we change that so that didn't happen? Do we need to do something before it so that doesn't happen? Okay, so we don't want to create that outcome. What outcome do we want to create? We want to create this one. Now let's go back to the problem. How can we shuffle that so that we get a positive consequence? Okay, so if I did this then that then means that, okay, I've got a better opportunity around that.
Yeah, and reverse engineer that for next time. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, and that's the way we go. So I really hope that's.
Are amazing. These comments are amazing.
So we're going to try and get through a fair few. All right. So I really hope that that's helped. If you want more conversation around anything we put out today, reach out to us. Right. We're happy. Both Lisa and I are available for consultation, right? That's what we do. That's what we do day to day. So reach out,
There's one earlier I wanted to grab, which was what was NLP, just to cover that again if you haven't seen other ones. Like NLP is neuro-linguistic programming, and it's all it is. It gets a lot of people like to hype it up. Basically, all it is a framework for communication. And I learned that at various levels, and I used to teach that, and I'm considering teaching it again. So give me a shout out if you want me to run an NLP training. And I'm very interested.
I'm grabbing this one.
Rebecca's comment. Yes, we're on the same page.
When are we not, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So this is a really important one, right? How do you deter your teen hanging out with friends that are not good for them?
What is that?
Trouble making friends that don't align with our values. This is a brilliant one.
You go, and then I'll go.
Me go? Okay, brilliant. All right. So, Rebecca, thank you so much for bringing this up, because this is something for me that I had to learn the hard way myself, right? And so I'm going to take it to my experience and then share how I share that with little man, right? And when I was told I was the average of the 5 people I associated with most, I looked at those 5 people, and as much as I love those 5 people, I didn't want to be any of them. So I changed it. I went and sought better influences in my life. Part of my journey with Oscar is, who do you want to be? Who do you want to listen to? Do you listen to people that you want to be like? Or do you listen to people that you don't want to be like because why? Because they're insulting you. I'm going to give you a big tip, little man. If someone you don't like is having a go at you and you don't want to be them, high five. You're not. Because if they were, they'd be complimenting you. Okay? Whereas people you want to be like, they will support you and go, great. So you get to learn from them. So I think giving power to your children to say, okay, this is really interesting opportunity right now because, life is definitely a challenge, right? So how do we, Oscar's 12, I just turned 12. So how do we navigate this? Because this is my vision for you, but what's yours? Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? Like, if you don't know, can we investigate that? What are the things you like to do? Understand the bigger picture, the context, and then go, is this going to get you closer to that or further away from it? What is it we need to do? Who do we need to be around in order to get closer to that? What are the key elements that we need to do? Okay, that's great. That's awesome. I'm glad that we've come to this assumption. Just looking at your friends, right? Because you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? How are we going to get you closer to where you want to be? How are we going to create a circle of influence that's going to allow you to get there? Because like life's full of opportunities and you've done nothing wrong. And the people that you're hanging out with, they're not bad. They might do silly things, but what's going to help you to get where you want to go? And you don't have to have answers. And this is something for me that it's a real shock to a lot of people. I ask a question and I don't want answers. I just want to sit in it, watch it for a week, see what comes up, right? And go, just watch it. Don't answer it because it's pressure. Let's just watch what happens and come back to it and make a conclusion afterwards. Yeah? So for me, it's understanding the bigger picture, understanding what it is. For you, it's 10, 10, 10. For me, it's 5, 5, 5. All right? Because at least, like, we're both looking forward. What is it we want in 5 months? What does we want in 5 years? Okay? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Okay, great. Let's find that. What do you want? Is that going to get you there? Lisa?
Yeah, I love that. And I think a lot of parenting is sowing seeds, right? We sow the seeds and you got to wait. You got to wait for harvest, right? It's not always an immediate exchange of information or knowledge. Often we plant seeds and then, it comes back later. I remember my beautiful daughter was 16 and she had a conversation with us about her sexual preferences. I think I'm, this. Okay, great. And she was emptying the dishwasher at the time. And my husband and I went, oh, okay, sounds good. Make sure you get the cutlery. Like, okay. And at the time, she was so offended that it wasn't a big deal. And we weren't making, oh, it's like you don't even care. 4 years later, at 20 years old, she's now 23, she came and she said, do you know what? The way that you guys actually were like, all right, well, it makes no difference to us, you're you and we love you, was actually the best way you could have dealt with that moment, which could have been and has been for many families, a big drama. But it took 4 years for the penny to drop for her that it was actually the right way, a good way to manage that situation. So it's sowing seeds, right? And harvest comes when harvest comes. But you got to have faith that the seeds you're sowing are going to bear fruit. So I love that you can ask a question and you don't sit there and, well,
It's such an important thing, right? Like and I think the stages of parenting are really important to embrace too, right? Because like I'm heading into the teens with little man, and that's going to come. It's already coming with significant body changes, emotions, different levels of tiredness consistently. Like it's great, right? Like I love that challenge. I love. Here's a secret, and don't tell him. He's my number one personal development tool. Yeah.
They are, aren't they?
I learn about me and the way I need to work with people because of him. But I'm going to grab something, right, which I will actually be doing some videos around. Okay.
Can I just make one quick comment on the hanging out with friends before we click off that?
Do you want to do that while I set something up?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know where that's. Is that code? Is that code for going on a woo? Anyway.
No.
So my perspective is with all humans, but especially with kids, is behavior is information. The choices they're making is information. So for your teen hanging out with friends that you see as not being good for them, which is coming from a beautiful place of love and wanting to protect them and keep them safe. And I adore you as a parent for wanting that for your kids. Making friends that do not align with our values. I would encourage you to get curious as to what the information is that's being demonstrated by the behavior in the choice that your teen is making by hanging out with these particular kids. What is it? So again, another sort of presumption that I work with is that all behavior comes from a positive intention. I'm going to say it again. All behavior comes from positive intention for the individual doing the behavior, right? So not necessarily for the greater good, but for the person doing the behavior or making that choice, as far as they're concerned, and a lot of this is a subconscious process, there's a gain out of this. Now, the gain might be, I want to break out of the mold of the version of me that I've been within my family as a child and a preteen. So I'm going to break out of that mold and I'm going to demonstrate my differences as an individual by hanging out with these kids that are, a values mismatch. But the positive intention behind it is I want to stand out on my own, right? Risk taking, right?
Yeah.
What's the positive intention of that risk taking behavior? What are they trying to achieve from that? What are they trying to get from the risk taking behavior? And have a conversation with them, not in the heat of the moment, right? In a cooler period. Maybe over a meal, or Scott and I have mentioned before, driving in the car when you're sitting side by side is a nice place to have that conversation rather than a face-to-face physicality, right? So rather than sitting opposite them and interrogating them, with the police spotlight in their face, it's a more comfortable physical positioning to have these tricky conversations sometimes is side by side. So pick up from school or dropping off at sport or something like that. These are great times to have these conversations. Hey, listen, I was really curious. I've noticed X, and I was wondering if you could explain to me what's driving that for you. Right? Because I want to understand you better, because I love you and I want us to remain close. And I am curious about what's driving you to do X or hang out with B, or, what do you get from that? How do they make you feel that maybe you're not getting at home? Or, and be a detective in trying to draw from them, staying in that curious and compassionate space, again, away from judgment and assumption and all of that, into what's in it for them, right? Because if there wasn't anything in it for them, they wouldn't be doing it, frankly. Yeah. And if you want some support around that conversation or the answers you get in that conversation from them, again, feel free to reach out to Scott or I and be like, okay, well, I sat down, I had the talk, and they said, ABC, and I don't now what do I do? Right. I'm more than happy to provide some follow-up for if anyone that resonates with.
Well, I love what you've just said, right? And I'm going to add a little bit more to it because I love it, right? And I think you gave the words to it that I would have liked to have. But I want to grab the fact that once you've said that, stop talking. Don't say another word. Yes, right? This is really, really, really important, right?
It is. Yes.
Because you've just hit them with something that they didn't expect. Give them time to process that. And if at the end of the car ride they haven't answered, so listen, I really respect that. That's a really big question. Is it okay if I honor you by not pressing you for it, but ask that you come to me at another point to talk about it, because it is something that is a concern of me, and I do want to understand it. I don't want to fix it, but I do want to understand it, right? So if that's okay, because that space gives the opportunity to think, all right? So, and I love that.
And again, it's sowing seeds, right? Because they might, all you're doing, just by asking the question, they might start thinking, what am I getting out of this? You know, what, you know, and it gives them something to muse over. And they may come back to you and say, do you know what? Now that you asked me that question yesterday, a week ago, whatever, I had to think about it, and you know, I think I might make a different decision. It's amazing when you allow that space, like that users just said, yes, create silence and they'll generally talk. When you allow that space and trust that you've sown those seeds earlier on, that they will usually, you know, come to a pretty smart decision on their own.
Yeah, and I love that, right? Because that's very much what it's about. And I love that, you know, create silence and they will talk. But I do want to grab something around the silence, right? It's about what's your intent before you have that conversation. What's your intent? Is your intent to get answers? Because that energy is what's going to go at them. Is your intent to go, actually, I want to understand, right? So go into that. What does understand look and feel like, right? Come into curiosity. I really want to understand this. So let's find out, right? So, all right, out, please. Thank you. So I love it. So dog. But there is something I want to say. And it's a little something to Janelle. And like, I love this woman with all my heart. She's been a friend for a very, very long time. And unfortunately, bullying starts really, really early. The first opportunity Oscar had was, he's actually got a scar across his nose when he was 2.5 years old. Yeah, right. So
next one. Yep.
And it's a lash out because of lack of attention, or someone else is getting attention. And that's at the end of the day, our kids generally want attention, right? But to open up, how do we make sure that they do know that they can talk about anything? And it's about not having anything that you can't talk about. That is such an important and integral part of that growth together. And I've had some extraordinary conversations from a very early age with a little dude, and it's created some serious safety, and so much so that and I'm actually going to hold that back out of respect for Oscar, because that what I just said, I ask his permission before I talk about him.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. If it's a big thing for him, I ask his permission. I pay him the respect that I would want.
And it's trust. It's that constant reinforcement of trust. Because if you betray that once, it is so hard to rebuild that. I think that the fact that you talk about Oscar a lot, and it comes from a genuine place of wanting to share and help, but you always do it with his permission, and you always do it in a way that is deeply respectful and maintains the trust that he has in you. And there's no issue, he's not worried, just like mine, that that we're using them for content, which I've seen online.
All I can do is be what I would want to have, right? And I think that's self-leadership is the key to all parts of parenting. Yeah. Self-leadership. What is it that you want in your kids? And I think I'm going to share something quickly that I think is probably one of the single biggest problems in parenting is the punishment doesn't fit the crime. We put in big, hard, full stops to stop the action, and it might be something simple, and we over penalize with our words and then don't follow through with it because we realize that. We don't mean that, right? So and I hate the word punishment equals a crime, but it's one that we all understand. But going into context and understanding things is a really powerful tool. But make sure if you say something, you follow through.
Number one parenting tip.
And sometimes you've got to do things that really hurt you, and it might be you that gets the lesson. You might be the one going, I've overdone this. And you can take responsibility for that, right? Because we're looking at the 80-20 rule, right? We're trying to improve. We're trying to make progress, right? Yeah. We're doing our best, right? So how do we do that? Yeah.
Totally agree. Cannot understate the importance of that. I've never nodded so much. My neck hurts, Rebecca. Yes. If you say something or you say you're going to do something, you've got to do it, right? Kids in particular, human beings, but kids in particular, when we talk about kids need boundaries and structure, right?
Yeah.
Part of that's not just about curfews or wearing a uniform. It's not just about logistical structure and boundaries. It's about contextual boundaries and structure. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to give you an example, which we've all seen 100 million times, right? You're at the shopping center. There is a tantruming toddler under 5. And mum says, or dad says, or granddad or grandma or whoever says, fine then, I'll just leave you here. And they take about 10 steps away, right? Now, we all know they're not going to leave them there, right? And after that kind of works once, twice, the kid goes, oh no, and we'll run after, right? After that, 2 things happen. 1, your kid calls you on your BS, all right? No, you're not. You always come back for me, right? And then all of a sudden that weapon in your arsenal doesn't work because they figured you out pretty quick. And 2, what it does is it creates a mistrust in the relationship. You say one thing, but you do the other. I can't rely on you. Right? And what that develops in a kid is I can't trust parent, grandparent, carer, right? Because they've said, if this, then this over and over again, but I don't get this, or, and so being so true to your word and consistent is key for behavior management. But it's also key for developing a deeply trustful relationship between your kids so that, like Janelle says, they will come to you. They trust that you will hold what they need to be held. They trust that they can share things with you, right? And I understand, I'm not shaming anyone that has resorted to those types of right? Because we all know that that carer is at their wit's end, right? And we've all been there. We've all been hair pulling, like, oh, I'm going to sell you to gypsies, my mum used to say, right? Like it's a Eastern European wog thing, right? I'll sell you to the gypsies. Right? It's like, so when she'd had enough. So we've all done it. I think it's really important to, if you don't know what else to resort to in terms of getting your kids to, behave or hold your hand crossing, whatever those things are, seek it out. Like Scott said, chase up parental advice, follow people like Dr. Justin Coulson. There are experts. We're having a conversation here as communication experts, as people that work in mental health, but neither of us are parenting experts, but we're just parents, right? So there are parenting experts. Seek advice, seek good advice from multiple places, and then work out what resonates for you. Educate yourself. Because I looked multiple times and he did not come out with a manual. There is no instruction book.
Are you serious?
I was there when it happened.
You didn't get it.
And I checked the box multiple times. I looked, he did not. That was inadvertent, by the way.
That was fun. That was great. That was gold.
They don't come out with an instruction manual. And so It was funny, just before I know we've been on tonight and this has been an amazing conversation. I got to tell you, after I got off the phone to you this afternoon, we're like, let's talk about parenting. And I said, this is going to be a good conversation. And, maybe I can talk about conscious parenting. And my son, who is 12 in August, so similar age to Oscar, says, what's conscious parenting? And then he goes, wait a minute, what's unconscious parenting? And I'm like, that's a damn good question, baby. Unconscious parenting is when you are on autopilot and what you're probably doing is repeating the patterns of the behaviors of the way that you were parented without really stepping back and assessing whether it's working very well, right? To me, that's unconscious parenting, is not being deliberate in any of this. And those people are probably not watching this live right now.
I agree. And I think,
you don't know what you don't know, right? And I think it's important, like, we're not shaming anybody. Like, I definitely, I have made absolutely my share of parenting mistakes over the years, 100%. Like I said, I got big ones. They're 21 and 23. So I've had a long time to mess kids up. One of my self-assessment tools when I was learning all of this the first time around was, is this going to make my kid need therapy? Will my decision now mean that they need therapy down the line? And do I need to reassess?
Yes.
Yeah. The answer is yes. They've already had it.
Yes. Let's be honest about it, right? So like it's and it's what support networks can you put around your kids that aren't you? Don't be everything to your kids. Yeah, because if that's a big responsibility, and the reality is we're not everything,
Well,
so.
Yeah. And developmentally, we won't be, right?
No, 100%. Right.
So developmentally, and there's all the research that we all reach a point in teenagehood where our parents don't know anything. They don't understand. They're the stupidest people on the earth, right? Because developmentally, their peers become more important. The opinions of their peers become more important than their parents. And we all do it, and it's totally normal. And it's part of this. It's part of the process. So, the more that you can encourage your kids to use critical thinking, to investigate, but why are they telling you that? Like, what skin do they have in the game? What's their motives for, and get them to be critical thinkers rather than swallowing things whole, is going to set them up for that period where you don't know anything, because if it hasn't happened yet, it's coming.
I want to grab that, right? Because critical thinking comes about when we allow them to explore, right? We allow them to explore. investigate their opinions.
Yeah.
Tonight,
Examine the source.
Right. So tonight's conversation came from our kids. We were sitting in the car talking. What are we going to talk about tonight? They were coming up with topics that we could talk about.
They were. I know. He was like, homelessness. I was like, that's a good one. Yeah.
That's
cool.
a good one. Yeah. You know?
What else? Yeah.
And then parenting. Like, okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
So, but,
it was great.
So I'm just conscious of time, right? Because
of course
we've both got a lot to do. But I'll put this picture up here. All right. And this is only my personal belief. I believe we're all like trees. Okay. Life will blow us around. We'll have storms, have all of these options. What keeps us from blowing over are our roots. And our roots are our foundations. Okay. Kids, we plant a seed. Our job is to get them to a certain point. Got to be gardeners until they can grow themselves. It's up to us to get the right compost. It's up to us to water them. It's up to us to plant them in places where they don't get shaded. It's up to us to prune them at the right points and take them out of situations so that they can grow to their fullest potential as adults. We're just gardeners. We've got to get other ingredients and the support to make them grow.
Yeah. And if the tree doesn't grow, you don't just yell at the tree. You check the soil, you check the water, right?
Yeah.
You change the environment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you got to pick that tree up and put it in a completely different place where there's new ingredients, new soil, better water. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
We're all trees. I have this with me, behind me, in front of me, reminding me what are the foundations I need to work on so that my roots are strong. The stronger my foundations and my roots are, the more I can carry, the less a storm will knock me around. The less will be affected by bullying. The less other people's opinions will matter because we're focused on the people's opinions that do. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So what an extraordinary conversation tonight, Lisa. And I'm really grateful to have this because I love being a parent and it comes with lots of lessons, you know. But the single biggest one that I can take away is I am a role model. I have to be the very best version of me, consistently growing in order to grow with my child. Because their needs change. I change. Let's grow together.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Love it. Has been amazing. Thank you everyone for engaging with us and asking incredible questions. And I love it.
And it's been beautiful tonight, hasn't it? How amazing has it been having the interaction? Like I've really enjoyed that tonight. And I've really enjoyed people actually putting their situations up there, honesty up there. How amazing is that, Lisa?
Yeah, it's a really beautiful space, and I'm just super grateful for being trusted within it. I'm a step parent. I'm a parent. My perspective is that it's a privilege that I have for the period of time that I have it, and when we can treat our kids, the greater community, their influences, their friends, even the ones we don't like, with compassion and curiosity, and treat ourselves as parents with kindness and compassion, and understand that it's okay to mess it up, and it's okay to get it wrong, and it's okay to tell your kids that you got it wrong, and sowing the seeds of a beautiful, trusting, open communication relationship is really the keys, you know. And I hope that kind of that kind of summarizes tonight's amazing conversation. It's been beautiful, and and I don't know, it excites me that it resonates, right? That we're resonating, that we're helping, that this is beneficial for people, because it makes me excited about what's to come in terms of what you and I are hoping to contribute, further and beyond, little online chats. So yeah, it's beautiful. It's always an honor. Thank you.
I want to grab that for a second, right? Because I have created a safe place to land because of Smiles for Life program, because of all the stuff I've done within the business of Smiles and all the experience I've had in our communities. I've literally created a safe place to land for men, because I don't believe that any one thing's important. I've got 3 coaches, 3 men in there with me, providing conversations just like this, just for men, because I see our role as men is to work together. I see our role as men is to not always have the answers, but to seek the answers. We just need to know who we can talk to. Who do we trust that we can have these conversations, And I've created that, and I'm so grateful for that, because and I know you've got some big stuff coming up this year, Lisa, and if you like what we're doing here, imagine what we're doing in other places, just quietly. Like, we're not here to advertise. We're just here to be here, just to do this literally, right? But with your help, because you become a part of these conversations, it helps grow our resource pool. This conversation,
just bigger and bigger ripples, right?
Yeah, 100%. So just for turning up, I'm just so grateful and thankful for every single person who did. It's just 100%. Wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you again, Scott Carson. You are a blessing, and I am grateful to be in your pond.
I think when we drop in together, we make a bigger ripple, and I'll take that every time. So on that, thanks everybody for tuning in. Lisa, love you. Thank you so much for doing what we're doing. And look, if you got something, you want us to talk about something, we're going to pop up every fortnight for a little while, just to be available, because we if we can, one person makes a difference. Give us something. Give us something you really need to talk about. Give us something you really need to hear about, and we'll drop it in.
And if anyone wants a confidential chat with either of us, just DM us on whatever platform you're watching this on. Just send us a message and we can have a chat. Obviously, separate and confidential. If something's really bothering you that you want to bounce off us and get a different perspective on.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. Hey, from my heart to everyone out there, thank you. Yeah, thanks for doing your best right now. All right. Now,
good night.
Lisa, where's that bloody button? Seriously, like one day I'm going to learn how to do it properly, because it's
why is it not big and red?
Oh no, because it's a double press, and I've got to do it, and I've got to. It's just. Oh, see you later, everyone.